We have the delightful pleasure to interview Dennis Moffat today. Dennis is a long-standing resident, a very prominent resident of Red Deer, and certainly a multi-talented individual. We're fortunate has brought those talents to Red Deer. So I'd like to begin, Dennis, by saying hello, and by looking forward to having our chat. And perhaps you would start with the answer to my question: what brought you to Red Deer? And what background and training did you have, and that you came with?
The answer is kind of interesting. I was going to get married to a lovely lady from Kenora, Ontario. And I thought, where will we settle down? I didn't want to stay in Kenora. It just was too much a pleasure ground for married men. Married men didn't have any responsibilities. They hunted, they fished, they gambled, they drank, and the women all stayed at home. I thought, that's not a good life for a woman. So I did a little survey. I went across Canada by car and looked at all the nice-sized towns that I could find. Peterborough, in New Brunswick, a couple of them, Prince Edward Island.
Was this before you were married or after?
Yeah, before. And finally, I came to Red Deer. And I'd been in Red Deer in 1954. And I used to sell sewing machines after I got out of school. And I thought, any town that you can see right through, from the North Hill right to the South Hill, that'd be a good place to raise a family. So I went home, told my wife we were moving to Red Deer, and away we went. And she was used to the lake, the big lake of the woods that Kenora was situated on. So when she was here for a couple of weeks, she was kind of lonesome, and I said, I'll take you to a lake here. Oh, she said, good. And we drove out to Sylvan Lake, and she said, that's not a lake, that's a slough. Since then, Sylvan Lake has really prospered and improved. But after a while, when the babies started coming, then she started to appreciate Red Deer, and now she loves it dearly. And it was only 15,000 people when we moved here in 1962. 1962, yeah. And we've lived here since then. That's 50 years.
Dennis, your background is originally in education.
Yes.
And that's what you trained at then after high school in
Kenora? Yeah, I started my school career in Winnipeg, Manitoba, after moving from Beausejour, Manitoba. I was born in Montreal, and at 2, we moved to Beausejour, Manitoba, small community. And then we moved to Winnipeg. And I went from grade 1, actually from kindergarten, and to grade 1 right through to grade 8. And after grade 8, my dad came to me and said, where do you want to go to school? I said, I didn't know I was going someplace to school. He said, yes, you are. We're going to send you away to school. So I'd heard about a place called Loyola College in Montreal that taught you how to play football. And I wanted to learn how to play football. So I said, I'd like to go. I didn't think he'd take me up on it. I'd like to go to this Loyola College in Montreal. He said, okay. So we made arrangements. Sure enough, they enrolled me in that school.
Starting in grade 9?
Starting in grade 9. And they had a wonderful football program. They had an intramural league just within the school. They had 6 teams. Each one of them had a coach they hired from outside, a football expert. So you had a real coach. And they taught you how to play football, right? And I played the ball game till 32 years old. So I loved it that much. I went through the high school playing, and then a year of what they call Loyola College in those days. It was equivalent to grade 13. And then McMaster University, or college, in Hamilton, Ontario, a small Baptist college, decided they were going to become a university. And the first thing they did was hire a football team. And I was lucky enough to be offered the chance to come for free to McMaster, and I'd have room and board and my education. So I took them up on it, and when I finished there, I had a phys ed degree, and they called it phys ed. Now they call it kinesiology, very fancy, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went west, and I ended up in Edmonton selling Elna sewing machines that had just come into Canada from Switzerland. Brand new sewing machine. They were wonderful. And all I did was make money. Like, everybody was making maybe $100 a week, $125 a week, and I was pulling in $400 to $500 selling these sewing machines. And I thought, well, this is easy, eh? And they came to me and said, we need somebody to do the outlying districts. That's when I came to Red Deer. And I came to visit and sold the sewing machines, Rocky Mountain House. I sold a sewing machine to a man in Rocky Mountain House that didn't even have electricity. All he wanted to know was, can this machine, when I plug it into my generator, can it darn socks? So I demonstrated how it darned socks, and he said, I'll buy it. And he gave me cash. I left my demonstrating machine there and took off. And the commission for selling a machine, which sold for, at that time, $249. Now they sell for over $2,000. But in those days, it was $249. As a commission, you got to keep the $49. And I cottoned on when I was selling them in Stettler and Panoka and up north. And everybody had an old treadle machine. So they'd say, would you take the treadle machine as a down payment? Fine, I said, and I'd load it into the back car. Go back, I'd sell in the machine, get the contract, go back into Edmonton, and sell that thing for, I sold them for $50 each. And so instead of $49, I was making $99 on every transaction. So I had all this money. So I was sitting there, I thought, well, I'll go back to Hamilton to McMaster and visit some friends. And I had a good friend, a doctor, Dr. John. And he said, well, what are you going to do with your life? I said, well, I don't want to end up selling sewing machines, because I looked at all my bosses, and they all had been divorced, and they were all alcoholics. And I said, I don't want to end up like them. So he said, why don't you like sports, and you like kids, and you like books? Why don't you become a teacher? I said, I used to play hooky all the time when I was going to school and get caught. I said, I never thought of becoming a teacher. He says, well, why don't you look into it? So I went and racked my brain, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll go. So I went to Hamilton Normal School at that time, and I enrolled, and was there for 2 years, graduated, they have what they called the cattle run. At the end of every term, they bring in all the school board representatives, and they interview all the graduating students. And if they like them, they offer them a job. Well, I was lucky enough to get picked by Burlington, Ontario. And when my name was announced that Burlington had selected me, they gave me a standing ovation, because Burlington paid the highest sum for any teacher in Ontario. $2,800 a year. I was making that in a month. But I was really honored. They picked me.
And what year would that have been?
That would be 19 Now I got to get this exactly right. That would be 1950, 56, 57. In that I can't get it exact. I can't remember everything perfectly. But that was wonderful. I taught in Ontario for 6 years. And then I moved, on the 4th year, I moved to Kenora, and that's where I got involved with romance. And that's prompted my move to Red Deer. And Red Deer has been wonderful to me. I've done a lot. First year we were here, we lived, because I got a job teaching. I went to see Mr. Daw at the public school board, and they said we don't have any openings at all.
Was this as a phys ed teacher, or?
Yeah, as any kind of a teacher, phys ed teacher. I could teach history, and I taught English and phys ed. So we don't have any openings at all for you. But he says, I'll give you the name of the superintendent of schools for the Catholic school system. See if they need anybody. I said, well, I'm not a Catholic, but I'll go and see him. So he said, yes. It was John, the lawyer, John Robinson, lawyer, the lawyer that got you off from anything. Anyways, he interviewed me, and he said, well, unless you're Catholic, we don't hire you. But he says, go down to see this fellow, Tom Murray, at River Glen School. River Glen School down the hill, and go and get interviewed by him. So Tom Murray, and you probably know him, remember him, he interviewed me, and he liked it. He liked the fact that I was interested in football, and I was a phys ed teacher that they needed, and he hired me on the spot. And he said, you can live in those army barracks behind the school. So we did. We didn't have any furniture. So I went to the Royal Bank, and I always remember this day. Royal Bank, I went in and said, at the time I'd spent a lot of money traveling and doing all the good things that money can buy, and didn't have a lot of money, and after I got married. And I said to him, we need some furniture. Oh, he says, here, go down and see Sims Furniture, get all the furniture you need, and come in and see me on Tuesday. So he gave me carte blanche to buy all the furniture we needed, and didn't even ask for anything, you know. I went in and signed a little loan, and the Royal Bank, I've been with them ever since, plus the credit union. Anyway, that was my start in Red Deer, and I thought, God, this got to be a good place to live. If people go by a handshake, and there's no paperwork, and you just say, this is what you're going to do, and you shake hands, and it's done. That's good. That's a good sign for a town. It's changed now, but in those days, it was greatly appreciated. A man's word and his handshake meant something in those days. Society has changed, unfortunately.
So that got you started in the education system?
Yes, and I loved River Glen. It was the best school in the world. After teaching 36 years, I looked back on my career of teaching. I never worked a day in my life, because every day was a joy. I loved it so much. Monday was my favorite day, to go back to school, and I liked to teach. I treated my classes with great respect. I wore a shirt and tie all the time, and a jacket, and I thought they deserved to be respected, and they returned that. And I was in love with all my students for all my career, and they returned it in kind. They really appreciated the fact that I treated them like human beings they were.
River Glen
was a county school.
Yeah, it was
county school.
Had students from agricultural
and in 1975. Wellington Daw, the principal of LTCH, said he'd like to interview me for a job opening as an art instructor, because they knew I was interested in art, because their art instructor had just retired. I forget his name, but he was an elderly gentleman. So I went over there, had an interview, got hired, and I left River Glen after 13 years, and then I spent my next happy 17 years at Lindsay Thurber. There's Lindsay Thurber.
We don't quite overlap.
Yeah.
My time there is, although it's been great to have you as a teacher. And that said, I did take art in grade 7 and failed it.
Yeah.
I tried to draw a picture of the old Rover hut.
Oh, yeah.
Scout hut, I think it's now called, and I couldn't get the lines to even work. So it was a great afternoon out of school, but that was the end of my art career.
Yeah. Well, my view is this: everybody could do art. Some of it is better than others, but it's all art, and because it comes from you, it's good. And so that's the way I treated my kids. I never laid a hand on their pictures. I didn't want them to do it like I did it. They had to do it like they did it. And I'd tell them, maybe you could do this, and maybe you could do that, but keep your hands off your students' work so you don't end up with a whole class of people who do the same kind of trees, the same kind of people. That to me is bad art teaching. Yeah. And I loved my job. I never worked. The kids did all the work. And the same with phys ed. Then I coached the football team for Lindsay Thurber when I was still at River Glen, because they said they needed a football coach, and they knew I had a football background. And as I played for McMaster, and I played for the Oakville Black Knights in the ORFU, and we won the championship of Ontario. And that's at 32, I stopped playing football. And I was 28 when I came to River Glen. And they came and said, would you coach our football team over at Lindsay Thurber? And I said, okay, providing I can have only grade 10 students on my team, and I'll work with them and produce a winner for you. So they agreed to that. They had all grade 10 students. The first year we played, they didn't win a game. They were good. They were enthusiastic, but they were just learning. The next year, we won 2 games.
So they would have been in grade 11.
They would have been in grade 11. And then when they got to grade 12, the powers that be at Lindsay Thurber came to me and said, we don't need you anymore. We have a phys ed teacher that can do that. Okay. They never lost a game, and they won the championship, and I've never forgiven them for me putting those long hours of losing, waiting for the day that they would, kind of dominate the league. And they did. And then now they still have a good team. And one of those old players is now a coach of the Lindsay Thurber Comprehensive School team. And I'm going to see the game on the 29th out at Great Chief Park to go see, because he invited me. Make sure you come see me. So I wish him well. He was good too.
Lindsay Thurber's had some illustrious phys ed
good
teachers and coaches. Although coaching the football team is extracurricular, is it not?
Don Tallis and Bob Albright and a lot of good coaches. Yeah, but the best one they ever had was me. I loved. That's a wonderful school too, and I did that. Happened to do that for them. And I didn't know how to get the long school into the picture until Bright Ideas had put one side there and the vocational behind it, and that says it.
Well, it makes it unique the way you've done it, but right. For those who know the school, they can integrate what you've done.
And who cares about those who don't know the school? Only it just means something to somebody, and that's how I kind of I do art, everything. I do athletic pictures, I do flowers, I do trees, I do scenes, I do people, I do jokes sometimes. I did a joke once. It was a copy of the Van Gogh picture, self-portrait, and my title was, "Everyone Deserves a Van Gogh."
Was it Van Gogh who lost an ear? Or?
Yeah, oh yeah. And you know that Van Gogh only sold one picture in his own, for $30 equivalent in francs. He only sold one picture. Now, nobody could afford to buy a Van Gogh. Yeah, but so as an artist, you do well once you die. Once you die,
your net worth goes up.
Yeah, right. They're not going to be any more.
You can't cash the check.
You can't turn them off again. But that's good. So that's how I came to Red Deer, and I love Red Deer. And the librarian, Mrs. Tedford at Riverglen, said to me in 1970, I think that was the year, 1970, "Why don't you run for council in the city of Red Deer? You live in Red Deer now, and go ahead and run for council." I said, what chance do I have?
You wouldn't have been the first from Lindsay Thurber.
No. And I was still at Riverglen then. This was in 1970. I moved to Lindsay Thurber in 75. But in 71, I came in last of the 8, and I was the last. I beat Ron McCullough out because my neighbors all voted for me. So I beat him by a couple of votes. He never forgave me. He says, "Once I got to your neighborhood, you couldn't lose." Anyways, I didn't know anything about council. I didn't even know they got paid. It didn't matter. I was surprised. They gave you $60 a month. "What's this for?" They said, "Oh, that's what you pay for being on council. $60 a month." And the first meeting we had...
It was just a part-time job.
Yeah, that's right. So I was elated. Hey, in those days, $60 was a good fee.
One sewing singer or one sewing machine.
Yeah, I remember going to supper at the Club Cafe at the first meeting of council, and I had $6 in my pocket, and I was sitting at the dining table, and right next to Bob Stallings, the city clerk, and I said to him, "Is there anything on the menu for $6?" He says, "You don't pay for your own dinner here. City council pays for your dinner." So I had spaghetti and meatballs.
Second lesson.
Yeah, that was great. You'd get free meal and get $60 a month. I was pleased. Now I think they do better than that.
I think so. Yeah, and there's a little more work or
a lot more work.
Reading material.
And to me, I remember Ed Barrett giving me advice. He said, "Since you're elected now, there's 2 things you should remember about being a good politician. Never lie, and keep all your promises." Never lie and keep all your promises.
The second one's a little hard to do.
Oh, yeah. So don't make any promises that you can't keep. I think that was the message. He was a good mayor. He was a good mayor. But that leads us to another aspect of my life in Red Deer, the farmer's market.
Well, Ed was, by background, was a butcher.
Yes, he was a butcher. And I remember thinking, I was visiting in Kenora, Ontario, relatives there, sitting in a canoe saying, Red Deer is a farming community, an agricultural community. Why don't they have a farmer's market like they do in Hamilton and they do in Kitchener and that? Why don't they do that? So when I came back to Red Deer, I went to city council. I hadn't been elected. And this was 1970. And I said this, no, it was 69, because 70 was the first year. But I went to city council. Ed Barrett was the mayor. And I said, could I start a farmer's market? Could you give me permission to start a farmer's market? And I'd manage it for the city, and we'll see what happens. And they said, oh, well, we had a farmer's market, a hay market, years ago in 1935, and it just didn't work out. But if you want to stick your neck out, you go right ahead. We'll give you all the help you need. Okay, so I said, well, there's one thing. Can I use City Hall address as a reply to a questionnaire I'm going to put in the Advocate? Okay, so the questionnaire was about this big. I think it cost me $55 in those days. Nowadays, it would cost $900 for that size, for an ad. But anyways, it said, citizens of Red Deer, would you like a farmer's market in your community? If so, where would you like it located? And on what days would you like it to operate? Okay. Now, in order to answer that, you had to cut it out, put it in an envelope, address it, put your own stamp on it, and send it to City Hall. I got 600 replies. 600 replies. 90% of them said, yes, we want a farmer's market. We want a farmer's market. So I knew I was right. So the answer, they said they wanted it on the old fairgrounds, where we are now. That's where they wanted it. They wanted it on Saturday, so the kids could work. They could do a lot of the work. And they wanted it to go from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. Okay? And then I said, did you want it to be a public or just for farmers? They said public. All these answers right. So the city gave me permission, and they said, you can use that land that's not being used at the old fairgrounds. And we operated right where the Creative Arts building used to be, and the grandstand that was there. And we started the market there. The very first day, we had 12 vendors. One of them is still there. That's the MacArthur family. The MacArthur family that sell, they used to sell onions and produce and gladiolas. And they're still at the market now. That's 52 years. 52 years later, still there. So we have a lot of people who've been there 30, 40 years, and a couple of them have died over we lose them that way. But that was a thrill, opening that market. And the 12 that were there, Andy Baruma, he was my neighbor, came and said, you want some help at the market? I said, sure. He says, what I'll do is I'll make some tables, and you can rent tables there, and they can pay me the rent, and I'll make the tables. Fine. So Andy Baruma, bless his soul, I know he's gone now. His funeral was on Saturday. He made 20 tables. 20 tables. He says, I'm being optimistic, but I've got 20 tables. He'd bring them in his truck. I'd unload them and give them to the people, set them up, unload them, at the end of them, and collect the money. It was $4 for those tables to rent. I charged $2 for a stall. So I was renting these stalls for $2 a Saturday, and Andy was charging $4 for his table. Well, I guess that's right. I know that it costs so much. And then at the end of the market, I would load them onto his truck, give him the money, and he'd drive home happy. And I put 2 and 2 together, and I said, he's a typical Dutchman. He's got me doing all the work, and he's getting all the profit. So I said to him, I'm going to tell the people to bring their own tables. and then I won't have to load them and look after them. And hey, it works out perfect. Everybody brings their own table now, and could you imagine trying to store all those tables? And and Andy still was my friend, because after every market, after he pocketed his profits, we'd go and have a couple of beers at the Windsor after the market. And it took me a while to catch on that I was doing all the work and he was getting all the money. And the city really did help. They didn't charge me any rent. But I went to them once and I said, could you make me a sign about this big that said, please wash your produce when you get them home, for safety's sake. Wash it. They made me a nice little sign, I put it up, and they charged me $175 to make that sign. And I said, is this the kind of help you're going to give me from now on? And yes, they have been very good over the years, but after 6 years, they decided they were going to start charging rent. And the rent they charged was $5 a stall that I had to take and give them. But by that time, the stalls were $10. So they got $5 a stall for me running the market. Now, it's $1,500 a Saturday for the market. So I'm kind of complaining. I'm getting ready to make a big complaint to the city the fathers, say, you're overcharging me. $1,500 for a parking lot and the use of the washrooms. That's a lot of money.
Well, it's a parking lot that would be empty if you weren't there.
Empty anyway. Yeah. And I said, does anybody else pay that kind of money to the city? I said, does the Westerner contribute any money to the city? Do the Rebels hockey team contribute any money to the city? Does Heritage Park contribute? Does the Chamber of Commerce contribute? I said, I seem to be the only one that's financing somebody in the city hall. So that's a bridge that has to be crossed. They can't overcharge me for doing a social service. Yes, I make some money now. Not gobs like people think, but probably $30,000 or $40,000 a year, which I pay all expenses. Okay, but they haven't helped me like they promised. They have been good, and the transit department has been wonderful. They rerouted the buses during Saturday morning and not complained, and they're quite happy. It goes around that area. Instead of cutting through, they go down that way, and they don't have to service it.
And they helped you when you had to move?
Oh, yeah.
Temporarily?
Yeah, and I understand moving was necessary because they wanted to build a new arena. So we moved to the Memorial Center. We have moved in the past. We moved to Lindsay Thurber parking lot. We moved to the Memorial Center. We moved on Ross Street between 49th and down to the train station. We were there for 2 years until a couple of doctors complained they couldn't drive directly to the hospital on Saturday morning. We had to move. We moved to the what we call the sports circle or sports center parking lot across from the bay. We were there for 5 years. But right now, back to where we originally started is the perfect place. The people in Parkville are happy with us. We took the trouble to go to every house in Parkville, tell them we were going to be there, and if there are any problems, see me and we'd fix them. They're happier. There's never a drop left, no papers, no blowing papers, no garbage left on that parking lot or near their fence.
And they're fortunate they can walk to the
farmers market. And they love it there. And the parking is more than sufficient. The access down 47th Avenue takes you right to the entrance of the market. Yes, we do cut off the traffic on 43rd there, but that's only for a morning. It's perfect, but the recreation department got it in their heads that they wanted us to move. And I kept telling them, well, the first reason they gave us, which was legitimate, they're going to build a new swimming pool on that parking lot area. You know, that one on the north? Right opposite the tennis courts. Yeah. Going to build a new swimming facility, an Olympic-sized pool. Okay, give us a couple of years and we'll move. We'll find a place. Suddenly, that plan changed. It's going to go up in the northeast corner of near Clearview, up in there. They won't need us to move. But they still think we should move. Well, why? Why, if there's not going to be a swimming pool built there and they don't need that land? Let us stay there, because that's the traditional place where we are, and it works perfectly. So that's another headbutt I have to do with whoever's in charge.
Recently there's been another farmer's market developed.
Oh, yes, lots of them. We were the first. Yeah. And the government of Alberta had me go around to people, show them how to start a market. Strathcona Market in Edmonton, that one. I did that. And I went to Saskatchewan once and went around and told people how to start their markets. We were the first new market. Like, there's always been one in Calgary and Edmonton and Medicine Hat. But not like us, not outdoors, not... and that's what we pride ourselves in, an outdoor market that welcomes everybody. As long as you're selling something that's legal, and as long as we have 60% of our people from agriculture. Mm-hmm. And it works perfectly. But it's quite difficult to start a market. You have to be patient. You have to work at it. Like, we have a market on Saturday morning, but the work is done from Monday to Friday to get it ready and to get everybody placed and to intercept the phone calls and say, where's the market? How do I come to the market? You know, my wife answers all those phone calls, and she does a terrific. And she does our finances, she does the banking, she does the books, and we have the books from 1970 right here. And I can look up in history. You'd be interested.
Family.
Yeah, and now my son and daughter run it, and I go down in the morning. At 8 o'clock. They're there at 3:30 or 4. But I go down at 8 o'clock. I buy them breakfast down there. I walk around and say hello to all the vendors. Then I go and park on 47th and I count the cars for an hour coming in to give them an idea of how many people are there. And then I go home. That's all I have to do. It's beautiful. Morris Flelling is our greeter. He says hello to everybody in the morning. I said, and I've got a job lined up for you after this is over at Walmart as a greeter. But he loves the market, and he loves to be there, and he loves to talk. And lots of things. And the art, when I first came to Red Deer, the first year we were here, I drove taxi for Burns. I thought, now that's a good way to learn about a city. You can know where everything is, and I would work at night from 7 in the evening until 1 in the morning, then get up and go to school, and I drove taxi to supplement our income. My wife was an emergency nurse for 32 years, and she would work, she was on the midnight shift sometime after I started driving taxi. So I had to quit driving taxi at 11, and she would go to work at 12, and I'd look after the babies at home, and then when she'd come home in the morning, I'd go to school. So it worked out pretty good. So I drove
We
taxi.
wouldn't see each other too much,
Yeah, no, that's right. We were kind of like ships that passed in the
just
night.
in an emergency.
Yeah, and it was good. We had fun. You know, we'd buy a bottle of wine a week, and when people came over, we'd have dinner for them and everything. And we had glasses about that big. We'd pour the wine in there, and everybody got wine. And we'd drink a whole bottle of wine a week.
You can make your own now.
Yeah, we did make our own for a while, but it's a lot easier just to buy it now, because wine is good no matter what kind you buy. There's why it's so expensive sometimes, I don't know, but I mean, wine's wine. Eh?
Some of that is tax.
Yeah, but yeah, we used to have a good life, and at least a busy life all the time. And then I got interested in Central Alberta Theatre, and I was with them for doing plays, and I went and took another degree at the University of Calgary in art and history and drama. And so after that, I started directing the musical comedies, and I think we did 6 of them. From the very first one was because it was 1967, and Brigadoon was a good musical, and the fact that it came to life every 100 years, and it was the 100th anniversary of Canada, we decided to do Brigadoon. Morris was my stage manager, Morris Filali, and he was my stage manager, and we rescued a grand staircase from that house right where Kentucky Fried Chicken is now, right on 49th Avenue and 53rd Street. Yep. They had a huge staircase, and we said...
Was that the Cangeezer house?
Mm-hmm.
The Cangeezer house?
Yeah, I think so, yes, it was. And so they said, yes, you can have it if you can move it. So we hired... Swede, Tronis. He could move anything. Eh? So he picked up the stairs for us, took it to the back of the Memorial Center, and it was there. And one of the scenes was a wedding scene. And my vision as the director was to have the bride come down the stairs in her wedding gown to be married. Great scene. But it took 36 of us to move the bloody thing and to get it into place.
Well,
so we had
it one step at a time.
We had our dress rehearsal. We were opening on the Friday night, and the dress rehearsal was to be Tuesday. So dress rehearsal came, and sure enough, we had everybody in place to move this for the scene. We started dress rehearsal at 4:50, and the show was finished at 1 o'clock in the morning. I thought, that's a little long for a show. And it was this bloody staircase that was taking all the time to move it in for that one scene. Morris was crying a lot of the time as a stage manager. So I said, Morris, let's go figure this out. We'll go back to my place tonight after the dress rehearsal. I didn't know what to do. So I had a bottle of Slivovitz. You know what Slivovitz is? It's an awful drink. And I said, let's have this drink over this bottle and we'll figure this out. Well, we drank the whole bottle of Slivovitz. And I said, we're doing away with the stairs. We won't use the stairs. She'll walk in the stage and that. And so we had another dress rehearsal on the Wednesday night, or Thursday night, and we cut it down to 3 hours. 3 hours, from 7 till 10. That was when the thing got finished. So there it was, a great opening night. And my mother came. She flew in from Victoria, where she was. And one of the scenes, one of the guy tries to leave Brigadoon, and you weren't allowed to leave Brigadoon or else the whole 100 years things would dissolve and it would disappear. And this young man who was playing the part, there was a duel. He was running away, and the hero, the heroine, stopped him, and they had a fight, a knife fight, which we choreographed very, very carefully. Every move we planned so that it was safe. Well, this kid got excited, and he sliced George Dryden's ear in half. And it was just at the end, and the blood was flowing. Just at the end of the first act, the curtains closed, and I got to do something I'd always wanted to do. I was the director. I went out in front of the curtain. I said, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And the doctor, he used to have the clinic over here. He put his hand up. I said, "Could you come backstage, please?" And everybody went, "Ooh, ah." So he hustled him off to his clinic over here, sewed him up, George Dryden. And in the meantime, when they were gone, it was decided that I had to play the part. So they had to put me in costume. I couldn't sing worth a damn. And I was all ready to go on when in come the doctor and George. And thank goodness. He went out and he never sang better and he never performed better. So after the show,
The moral of the story is, sew him up first.
The moral of the story is, my mother came to me after and she said, "That was wonderful," she said, "and I really liked the part where you asked for the doctor after that blood scene." She said, "That was real." I said, "Mom, that was real." That was real. She really liked that part. Anyway, lots of good things happened with my sojourn with the Central Alberta Theatre.
And everybody was carrying liability insurance.
Oh, yeah. And you know, Father Rose, we didn't have any money to start this Brigadoon. The Central Alberta Theatre was struggling just to make ends meet, and we didn't have any money, so I was looking for somebody to sponsor us, to make a loan to the Central Alberta Theatre. Well, Father Rose at Sacred Heart Church said, got a message to me saying, I understand you're looking for a sponsor. So I said, "Yes, could you come and see me?" So I went to see him, and he said, "How much do you need?" I said, "Well, Father, $1,500, we could do it for that, produce it. And we could pay it back from admissions." Right. He wrote us a check for $1,500. Said, "Here, providing I can play the piano for you." I said, "You're on, Father." And he was wonderful in the orchestra. He played the piano for all the rehearsals for the piano, and he just loved it. And we made enough money to pay him back immediately, and I think we made $400 profit for the Central Alberta Theatre. But it was a wonderful experience, because all of those people that worked so hard in the court, they all worked for nothing. I worked for nothing to produce this for the Red Deer, and they loved it. And we did other shows, Oklahoma, Little Abner, Plain and Fancy, The Most Happy Fella. Some of them are great, some of them were dismal. Then I got to be in Our Town as the stage manager. That was the highlight of my career. And we changed the writing of Our Town so it was Red Deer. Red Deer was the town instead of the Corners in New Hampshire. And it was good, really good. Pat Lawrence was in it. He was the old historian, the archive.
Judge.
Huh?
The judge, or...
Oh, yeah. And Pat Lawrence, he was good. And I was a stage manager who explained the show to the audience. And come out and I had a pipe and fedora, like we used to wear in the 50s. That Our Town was a good show.
Dennis, as you look back on your many years in Red Deer, what are some of the unique features or unusual features or very positive features of Red Deer as it compared to other communities?
Red Deer is a special community. It's situated on the Red Deer River. Its name, Red Deer, was a mistake because the name that the original Aboriginal people here gave it was Waskasoo Sipi, which really meant red elk. And that when the first Scottish settlers came, they misinterpreted the CP to mean deer. And that's how we got our name, Red Deer, by mistake. But it still fits. We see deer all over the place. We don't see many elk. But the Antler Hill area, the Blackfoot Nation, or the tribes, they used to live around Pine Lake, and then in the winter they would come to Antler Hill and make their camp there. That to me, I was interested in Indian folklore and history at the time. And the Blackfoot were feared by all the other tribes, and even though they were only 1,500 people, they were a power unto themselves. Mm-hmm. They kept the other tribes from fighting each other, and if they made mistake, they would fight the Blackfeet. They were a pretty good organization. The Red Deer, when I first saw Red Deer, was in '54 when I was selling sewing machines. When 9,000 people was this community. And then when we moved here, it was 15,000. And now it's over 100,000. So I've seen it grow. I feel partly responsible for some of the good things here. I'm honored to have my name on plaques all over the city. I think there's 12 of them.
These are on buildings constructed by the city.
Yeah, and projects like Riverbend Golf Course, like one of the things I'm proudest of. You said to mention this. When people had to have their sidewalks replaced, they would get a bill from the city for whatever it cost. So I made a motion in council, and this was my reasoning. Nobody should have to pay to have their sidewalk replaced because they've already paid for it over the years in their taxes. They've paid for that original sidewalk. And nobody uses their sidewalk personally to walk up and down in front of their house. The passing public uses that sidewalk. I said, so when it's replaced, I said, the people behind that area shouldn't have to pay extra because they've already paid for it once. And I got it through. And everybody that was affected at the time really thanked me. They thanked me a lot. That was one of the things I was really proud of. And the other thing I'm most proud of is our waste program, the nuisance grounds. We were faced with a problem at council where to put the new refuse dump. Well, I figured it out that it cost $1 million a year to transport $1 million a month to transport garbage to the Delburn or Pine Lake area where they were thinking of moving. That's a lot of money. So I came up with a brilliant idea. Go to the farms out here, buy their land for the dump. Give them whatever they want for the land. Give them whatever they want. So the total bill to buy that land where the dump, nuisance grounds or whatever we want to call it,
Waste area.
was, I think, 6.2 million for all of that land that they got. The farmers were happy, they got what they wanted. The city was happy because they didn't have to pay that $1 million a month bill that it would cost to transport all that garbage from the city. That's the thing I'm proudest of that ever did for the city of Red Deer. And nobody knows about that till now. And a lot of people claimed that it was their idea, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I gave them the idea.
And as you look back, I always think of Red Deer as a mid-sized community in Alberta and in Canada, but very young, growing, and out of that is an energy and a spirit that few communities, I believe, have. I won't say how useful it is, but as I look at it, it's been a great place to live in. And
oh, it has been. It's a perfect place.
But like compared locally to say Medicine Hat or Lethbridge, or beyond that, in larger parts of other parts of Canada, like you've been in, what do you find are some of the uniquenesses to the community?
Well, Red Deer is home. I've been here now 62 years as a resident. When we first got here, Red Deer was a very, well, if you weren't Scotch or Irish or English, you weren't here. That's how it started when we were first here. Very few people of other origins. There were 2 Jewish families, only 2. There was, I think, the Roses were a black family, one black family. There were nowadays we can go and see a world mixture, which to me is good. We become international almost in our makeup. I know that the Filipino community is probably the largest in Red Deer now. It outranks the European group. The indigenous people are certainly affirming their place in our society, and I think all of that is good. We've become a more homogenized community over the years. I find it's a very conservative city, and I mean that in the best sense. When I was convinced, after my initial close victory to be a member of council, I was prevailed on to run for the Liberals in the federal election. Now, I had moved from Kenora, Ontario, where my great-uncle was Peter Heenan, and they've named the Heenan Road after him, the Heenan Highway, the Heenan Park, the Heenan Street, everything. He was a Liberal MP. He was in the cabinet. But he represented, when he got the nomination first, he got the nomination from the Liberals, and he walked down and he got the nomination from the CCF. The only one in Canada that represented 2 parties. Peter Heenan was his name. And he worked closely with Douglas to get the old age pension passed. And so he was my great uncle. If I had run in Kenora, all I'd have to do is say, my great uncle, Peter Heenan, they would have elected me. I come to Red Deer, I'm going to run as a Liberal way, unbeknownst to me what it was really like here. In 1905, when they had their first federal election, every riding in Alberta voted Liberal, except Red Deer. Red Deer has never elected a Liberal in the history of Canada. So where does Moffat run? Right here. And I remember I was doing very well. People obviously liked me because they elected me as an alderman. But I got up on the final platform night where all the candidates were, and the place was full. It was at Central School, and I proceeded to tell them, my friends, how stupid they were for voting Conservative. That lost me the election, because they had considered voting for me. Even after all these years, they thought, well, we'll take a chance on it, because it was a Liberal government at the time. And I told them how stupid they were for not voting Liberal. Because think of all the benefits you'd get if you voted Liberal. You're really stupid. Put my foot in my mouth. And it happened for the good, because I would have been a terrible MP. I would have been a terrible. I tell them what was wrong with them, and they don't like that. They don't like that. So then, after that, I ran 4 more times. I could never beat Gordon Towers. I always came in second. Gordon would win as a Conservative. I ran against what's his name, the guy from Eckville. The guy that said that the Holocaust didn't happen, Jim Keestra. And I said, down at Three Hills once, this man is crazy. This man is crazy. He's not right. Because he got up and said that Trudeau has a prison camp up in Many Berries, northern Alberta, where he sends his political enemies. Jim Keesler said that. So my turn came to speak, and I said to Gordon Towers, now you're a member of Parliament. Is that true, Gordon? And Gordon said, yes. We're in Three Hills, and everybody applauded Gordon Towers. Now, Gordon Towers was a wonderful fella, but he didn't help me believe him from then on, because I thought, you're a member of Parliament. How can you stand there and say, yes, there's a prison camp up in northern Ontario, or northern Alberta, that Pierre Trudeau keeps his political prisoners? Maybe he believed it. No? Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, rest in peace, Gordon.
Yeah, that answer doesn't quite fit. For those of us who knew Gordon, an unusual answer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it was an unusual answer, and I had no argument with him. All my friends running, except for Jim Keesler, who I told him to his face, "You're crazy. You're crazy." And Ethel Taylor was running at that time too. She didn't say anything. Anyways, those are kind of. I probably rambled on for too long, eh?
As you look, I guess we all look to the future. Do you see any major changes coming to Red Deer?
Hopefully,
challenges it faces it'll need to overcome.
Hopefully, we solve the homeless problem. Hopefully, I think council will solve it somehow. But it is a problem in Red Deer. Why? Red Deer's in the perfect situation for all of the people who need a change from Edmonton and Calgary come, because it's not too far away, and yet they're away from their environment. It's an attractive place to come, and I hope that problem is solved. I hope that high-speed railway connection is built eventually. I don't know where the money's coming from, but there should be a connection in a train system from Fort McMurray to Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat. And you could go the whole thing on a fast train. I don't know what the automobile people would think about that, or the gasoline producers would think about that. But
the taxpayers.
I think transportation has to be solved, because that highway as wonderful as it is getting to more and more and more like the 401. And it's kind of scary sometimes. The fact that a train used to come in here, they used to say, what's the most exciting thing that happens in Red Deer? And I said, well, when the train comes in the evening, we all go down to see it, who's getting off and who's getting on. And then I said, and the next best thing on Saturday morning is to go watch a haircut. It was pretty quiet then.
So, well, I do remember when in the steam engine days, when the train or the last steam engine came into Red Deer, and you could hear it, so clearly miles away.
And we'd all be down there Friday night, Friday night was a big event. Go down, watch the train come in, see who's coming for the weekend.
Well, there were lots of VIPs that would go from Calgary to Edmonton and stop in Red Deer and say hello.
That's right.
Red Deer was fortunate in the people that came
also,
to town on that basis.
Yeah. Also in my career, I've had the privilege of having dinner with the Queen 4 times. The Queen has just passed away. It was wonderful. Once was up at the Capri, the old Capri Hotel. The Queen actually came to Red Deer, and I was sitting at the table next to Bob McGee and Don Getty and the Queen. I didn't talk to her much.
You were honored. I'm sure she was.
Yeah.
In a larger
one
sense.
of my big thrills was in Calgary when we were at the dinner for the Queen. We sang, "God Save the Queen," and there she was. There she was. And we're all singing "God Save the Queen." To me, that meant a lot. And even as an Irishman, I still respected the Queen.
Well, that's a nice multicultural way to end. But I have to thank you very much for coming and joining us.
It's been a privilege.
Yeah.
I hope I haven't bored you. I hope that you don't delete too much or have to delete too much. I know you have to edit it. And it's been a privilege. And it's been a privilege to be a Red Deerian all these years.
Hasn't it? I guess I say that having been born the day after my mother arrived in Red Deer in 1940. So,
in 1940. That's 82 years ago.
Yes, I ran the Terry Fox yesterday as a, let's see if I can do it.
Good for
And
you.
still enjoy another aspect of Red Deer.
Oh, yeah. It's an active community. Very active. You see people walking and biking and doing all sorts of things that I don't do. I walk a lot.
Well, it's had cultural awards, and it's a volunteer, in some
And the
ways,
volunteers
a
are
volunteer
wonderful.
capital of Canada, and has hosted many significant events, and obviously will continue to, and enjoys it, and is very careful about the denouement, the after effects, and the legacies that come from
Any town you can see right through it is a good town.
from one hill to the other.
That's right.
Yes,
From one hill to the other.
I'm familiar with that view.
Yeah,
Great.
it's beautiful.
Well, thanks again,
Okay.
Dennis. My
Thank you.
great pleasure.
Okay.